This is Daniel Workman with Baldwin Berges from Emerging Frontiers, and we're in a Google Hangout today with Amir Paivar from the BBC Persian Service, as well as Sara Usinger of AvaTech, a business accelerator based in Tehran, and two entrepreneurs that are with a company called Navaar, who are joining us as well, Hamid and Asaf. Thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah.
All right. Our first question is for Amir. Amir, I've read that Iran produces more engineer graduates per capita and has one of the highest internet penetration rates in the developing world. In addition, it has a mobile penetration rate of over 120%. Is this by design, and why are Iranians so connected to the world in this sense?
I would say it is essentially because Iran is a very young country. After 1979 revolution, family planning schemes in the country stopped, and a generation of baby boomers emerged. You will read quite often saying that 70% of Iranians are under 30. Well, it's been 10 years we've been saying that. The population is aging, but it still is very young. And young people are early adapters of technology. That is why any new technologies immediately adapted in Iran, like we saw the boom in use of mobile networks, mobile handsets. Of course, it does have also something to do with government policy as well. As we saw with a mobile expansion, for a long time the government was resisting it. Once they opened the doors, there were floodgates. Same with internet penetration. As far as the education is concerned, again, Iranians are very education savvy. I very well remember from my early days at school when half of the school, when they were told what they want to become in future, would say they want to become doctors, and the other half engineers. There is a tradition in the country which goes way back that education, university education, is very highly valued, and hence you see such high numbers of Iranians are university educated. Most interestingly for Iran, it is not equal between women and men. There are actually more female students at universities than there are men. So a combination of all these factors have contributed for Iran to be a country of characteristics you explained.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating there, because I mean, also Iran has almost 70 million people, right? At least that's sort of the formal number. And you'd expect that there's going to be, and it's quite a young population as well, I believe, right? I don't have the demographics in my head, but my gut feeling tells me that most people are definitely going to be younger than 35, right? I mean,
that's right. Yeah. That's right. So we are talking about 77 million Iranians, and possibly around 65% should be under 35. That's a very young population. Now, and again, the country is right now in a new phase of encouraging more families having more number of children. We might be seeing another trend of baby boomers in the future. Of course, the economic situation of the country to some extent will limit that compared to the early 80s trend we saw, but yeah, the country is still a very young one.
Yeah, and let's ask Sara, who's actually in Tehran right now on the screen, and because so big population with a lot of young people, that sort of makes you think, and entrepreneurs. So Sara, tell us a little bit about what the entrepreneurial ecosystem looks like down there. Do you have any numbers that you can illustrate it with?
Okay. I'm here since 4 months now, so I don't have the whole history, but I know from my colleague what has happened during the last 4 years or last 3 years. And basically, until 3 years ago, there wasn't really a startup ecosystem here. And actually, my colleague who was running a company, he was interested in starting an accelerator back then, but they decided back then that it's much not really, the ecosystem is not really there yet to have startups being accelerated, because there were basically no startups then. So what they did, they started running startup weekends, which is like a 3-day event that should help young people interested in entrepreneurship to learn a little bit more about it, work on their ideas, work on future startups, meet people, connect with people. And they basically did it like for 2 years, running startup weekends like in 6 or 8 different cities in Iran, trying to build up this ecosystem, trying to build up a community of people interested in entrepreneurship. And besides that, there were conferences organized, there were meetups coming up, so more and more people got interested in startups. There was an NGO formed, which is called Iranian Entrepreneurship Association, which is helping startups. So like lots of people were working together in order to build up this ecosystem and to build up a stable foundation in order to accelerate and incubate startups. And in the last years, there were also VCs, like local VCs coming up. So people got interested somehow in the topic and investing into startup or young companies. And like beginning of this year, my colleague decided to start this accelerator. So basically we started like beginning of October with a pre-accelerator of 8 weeks, where we had 20 teams joining us, getting mentorships, getting workshops and everything. And just last week we started the accelerator with 12 selected teams, so they will get funding and more workshops, more mentorship. And we will have a big demo day in March.
Wow, that's
where they
wow. So you're at the birth of this trend. Sorry.
Sara, touching upon, Amir mentioned that about 70% of women, or 70% of university students are women. How are women represented in? I'm sorry, Amir. What is it?
It's 55 to 45.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
but there's more female students in the universities than there are men, definitely.
So with more women represented in universities, how is it in the entrepreneurial scene? How are women represented in that ecosystem?
Compared to Germany, it's more or less the same. Like in the startups I met or I saw, but regarding to startup events and events for like people interested in web development, design and everything, where we almost have nobody in Germany, there are much more female participants than I'd expected to be, which happens because I think there are much more female students in software engineering compared to Germany, for example. So there are more female students interested in software engineering and developing web development. So they are joining like startup weekends, and I think the rate is a little bit higher than in Germany, for example. But looking at startups, it's still very few.
All right.
Like at the moment, our 12 teams, we don't have, like we have one female co-founder.
Wow, that goes against a lot of expectations that people may have. It's interesting. I want to go back to sort of basically you're in a nascent startup place. So you're like witnessing this whole explosion of a new trend. It's a baby. It's becoming a toddler fast, and before you know it, it'll be running around. And the thing is, I'd like to know a little bit more about how does the culture is the culture about startups at the same pace as, for example, the opportunity. For example, in Europe, we have different speeds here, right? I mean, there's countries where to be an entrepreneur means like it's almost like, are you looking for a job or whatever, and then in between you're doing something. Whereas other countries have a whole culture about entrepreneurship. What is it like in Iran? Are people open to this? Are they willing to invest? What's the feeling like there?
I think the two guys sitting next to me, they had the best example for how serious entrepreneurship is taken here, because both of them had quite good jobs before, and they both quit their jobs in order to start their own startup, and which is in a country where the economic situation is not that perfect, and where there is a huge rate of unemployment, which is a very bold step, I think. And for me, it shows how serious people are taking this. It's not like having something besides, or it's not like this lifestyle entrepreneurship I saw in Germany, for example, where people are, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur because it's fancy and it's trendy. And that's not happening here. Like,
I mean, if anybody out there can actually say that they had an amazing lifestyle and by becoming an entrepreneur the first few years, I want to meet them and I want to pick their brain apart. Then,
so in my, like, also witnessing startup weekends, people are taking it really, really serious. It's not like, okay, I try it out and if it doesn't work, I go back to my job. But it's something people really focus on. People are working, like teams here are working like 70, 80 hours a week. Like, yeah, it's their baby, so they want to make it happen. And there are huge opportunities here. Like 3G internet just started like a few months ago, so there are huge, huge opportunities. There's a huge market for e-commerce, for mobile business and everything. Because people are, yeah, lots of people are like in the mobile, and smartphones are just coming. So there are huge opportunities.
But you must see a lot of people like yourself. You come from abroad into Iran for the opportunity. You must see a lot of that going on. I mean, a friend of mine actually is also pretty much involved in the education space, and you know, she's essentially responsible for a whole program about getting a high level professional, you know, MBA type of education into Iran. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move this on a little bit. Daniel.
All right, Amir. It seems that, you know, especially in Silicon Valley and in many of the Iranian diaspora communities, they seem to be, you know, Iranians seem to be really represented in, you know, in the entrepreneurship scene and the high-tech scene. Is there something in Iranian culture which really, you know, is the cause of this?
I would say there are a couple of factors. One is Iranians tend to be individualistic people. Now that's a double-edged sword. But what it means is I do see a tendency among them to start their own business rather than joining a bigger company. That's been a cultural factor. We do have a very long tradition and heritage of being a merchant nation, sitting right in the middle of the Silk Road. It's not just exclusive to Iranians. The Turks in Turkey are more or less the same, but we have a long history of being traders, of being merchants. That, I think, contributes to this factor as well. The fact that we have so many Iranians in Silicon Valley goes back to partly the education factor we were talking about, but also a couple of very, very good technical universities in Iran, namely Sharif University of Technology, which I think has contributed more or less half of the people you're talking about in Silicon Valley come from that university. A lot of my own classmates from high school and university ended up in Silicon Valley thanks to Sharif University of Technology, where they are highly educated, really state-of-the-art education in engineering, and also have good links to universities in the United States. So all these factors together, and all of a sudden you see so many Iranians ending up in startups, in high tech in the United States.
So I guess that, you know, really leads us to Arif and Hamid. Can you guys, or can you just tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you ended up, you know, creating a startup and why you left your, you know, I'm sure, you know, great solid jobs to start your own company?
Hamid, I think you should start first.
Yes. Yeah, well, we're Navaar. We're selling audiobooks. We are targeting the. We are trying to emerge the book publishers, audio publishers, to the scene that they can sell their stuff. We're a good platform about that. and there are concerns about returning their money. The book publishers and audio publishers couldn't get their money in time, and the industry for audiobook didn't work in Iran. I'm sure you are familiar with the Western icons in that industry, like Audible, and we're trying to kind of imitate that because they have a very successful business models, and the sanctions and the problems in Iran couldn't make people to communicate with them in a way to purchase, to sell, to produce audiobooks. Actually, in Iran, people now are producing audiobooks on CDs and DVDs, and they're selling it through offline channels. It is like you go to a website, you order, and then that CD, is delivered to your door. And it's not working digitally. Digitalization, it really happened in Iran. We have successful websites like BibTunes, like DigiKala, and they are working perfectly well on that channels and on those channels. And we're now focusing on digitalizing the audiobook, and we just learned about how to work with book publishers. They are really, really old and ancient publishers who
I think we might have lost. Yeah, Arif, can you
we lost them? Yeah, sure. Calling from a more let me further elaborate on the personal background. Okay, you don't learn to become an entrepreneur, or you don't be trained to become an entrepreneur. It's just something that you will understand about yourself along the way. Me and Hamid, and actually Arash, which is not here with us, we used to work in big companies, and I don't know, there is the opportunity in the market, and you see that there is something inside you that calls for doing something more, doing something bigger than a corporate work. And then you start looking, you start to find new friends, and you start to meet other entrepreneurs, and then you will get connected. You will find a venture capitalist that is willing to help you somehow. And then that's how you progress to become to build an idea, to work on it, and to really make it a working business.
How you mentioned venture capital? How has access been to to financing?
Actually, we just finished the pre-acceleration period. I think the access is quite easy. We didn't do anything more than simply focusing on what we were supposed to do, and I think the community is just being built up. Investors are being more and more interested. People are being more and more realistic about what ideas they really need to work on, and I think the access is easy. Actually, we haven't received that much yet, but I think the process is straightforward after this.
Sarah, are you with us now?
Yeah.
Yes.
How is it in with the other companies and just within Tehran? Have they been able to access capital, or is that still a struggle?
Like our startups, or general?
In general, or in your startups as well.
I think, like, looking at venture capital, there are some VCs here. They are not yet so experienced in investing in startups, which we are also helping with. But this isn't that big of a problem because people are getting really, really interested in investing in startups startups who are already on their way, like DigiColor was when they got investments. What was missing until now was this like bridging the gap between like having people very interested in entrepreneurship and having startups who are just on their way to create like first revenues, who are like maybe creating a little bit of revenue yet, but who are not really ready to scale yet. And that's where we came in as one of the first accelerators, actually, who is providing the seed money, who is providing the mentorship, the connections, and the trainings in order to help these people and these startups to grow within 4 months, so they are ready to get like their first round of investments on a bigger scale. So this was, I think, this was missing the last 1 year. So we are trying to bridge this gap, and we hope that more accelerators are actually joining us. So we have more and more startups coming, and more chances for people to enter in the startup scene and getting like the support and the financial support and the mentorship support they need in order to grow.
Actually, I wanted to add something to what Sara said. You know, sometimes there were times in Iran. I was reading a phrase from Nazanin Daneshvar. She's the founder of Takhfifan website. It's like Iranian Groupon. And she was saying that, you know, when she started to talking with investors in Iran, they didn't believe her even. You know, culturally, they didn't believe her to a woman with that age. Listened, you know, she's sitting on a chair and she wants to build $1 million business. And what AvaTech and other companies, Startup Weekends, and people who have the experience of a startup making scenes for startups are doing in Iran is that culturally they are going to help them to be believed. Now they are listening. Now they want to listen to us. We have book publishers that they are willing to just invest in a startup scene, and it has a very good impact culturally.
Okay, great, guys. I mean, we're running at the limits of attention span here, and we can go on about this all day long. It's just fascinating, and hopefully we can do a few more episodes. But to sort of start rounding it up, could you, Sara, could you tell us a little bit more about what you're looking at these days and what your business is doing? Yeah.
Yes. As I said, we just started with 12 teams who joined us in the accelerator. So at the moment we are pretty busy in preparing everything on the legal side, due diligence and everything, and also getting investors on board. We have an investors club, so people who are interested in investing in our startups right now, and we are trying to build up this community and also build their knowledge in order that they know what it means to invest in startups, so they are not like thinking, okay, we will get like millions of tomans back in 2 months, but that they know what it means to invest in startups, what it means to be an investor in a startup, so that they also support the teams, mentor the teams. That's what we are building up right now. At the same time, we are preparing workshops, we are preparing trainings, we are like trying to get lots of international trainers as well, so they support us as well. Yeah, that's pretty much, and actually we are already preparing to release the applications for the next cycle, so we are like having the demo day in end of March, and beginning of April we will already start again with 20 new teams, and we're trying to build up this community as well and trying to build up knowledge for these people who might be interested in joining us, so the level of startups is getting higher and higher in the next years. And we are like, in the long run, we are already preparing to scale, so we are planning to set up other accelerators like branches, maybe here in Tehran, maybe in other cities in Iran, so that's what we are planning right now.
I love it. I love it. It's wonderful. We're going to hear a lot about you, I think, in a very, very good way. So finally, is there something...
We will hear a lot of these teams and our teams because they are the most important people here.
Of course. It's you never do it alone, do you? It's always that chemistry and combination of the right people. So, is there anything that you absolutely think that this is the moment? Are there any misconceptions out there in the world? Anything that if you had a few seconds, you'd really like the world to understand better about Iran? Is there something that you'd like to get up on a soapbox about? Like
if I may chip in, there was a investment conference here in London only a couple of months ago, and typically such investment conferences are dominated by people who are interested in Iranian oil and gas industry, auto industry, or petrochemicals. For the first time in that conference, we had a couple of Iranian startups represented. Unfortunately, the CEOs of DigiKala, the two startups who actually we wanted to be here, were absent due to simple visa problems. But one of the VCs from Sarawak represented them. You should have seen that room being packed by investors who were glued to the screens and to the speakers, telling about the potentials, once sanctions are removed, of what there could be in Iran, the potentials which could be. And that was a very good sign that for the first time I saw, I mean, this was the most attended session, only second to the oil and gas session in the investment conference. That gives you an indication of the interest also outside Iran, looking at the potentials of the country. At the same time, on a more sobering note, I should say that this is all true, that the potentials are really big, they're really high, but there's also a lot. There's also a lot of room and distance we have from having Iran develop as a proper ecosystem of startups. I've seen in the media, and we in the media are also are to blame for it, to sometimes hype it up too much. Of some people comparing Tehran to Tel Aviv, Berlin, Silicon Valley, or Silicon Street. There's a huge gap still, but that means there's also a huge opportunity, because the potentials are there, but to actually develop that potential into an ecosystem, it means business opportunities. As my job, I monitor business developments in Iran, and I can see a big opportunity there for businesses to fill that gap and make those potentials realize into a proper ecosystem for tech entrepreneurship.
Wonderful, thanks. Any other impressions like that? Because otherwise, we should round this one up, because I think we've been going for quite some time here. How do you go ahead. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that people in Iran are talented and they did business for a long time. I'm sure Amir is agreeing with me on that. And they have their needs that they are going to be up to the needs of the people in the world. For example, they need to listen to music, they need to listen to movies, and there are not good, very big alternatives in Iran. The famous brands that for example, eBay or something like that, and people are inventing them, and they're going to invent them. And nobody's going to stop about that. And I think that this is the place that people from outside of Iran should recognize that it's better to help communicate with them and help to find a way to just economically, financially. One of the biggest problems is that our banking system doesn't work abroad, and if they try to do something about it, I don't know, I don't know what is the solution.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, that's too bad. We just lost him. That was a wonderful statement to go on because I just love it. I mean, I'm always on the side of the challenger. I mean, it's great that people have their own versions of things in their own countries. It's very creative. So, all right. How do you say thank you in Farsi?
You both use the French word merci, but also say mutshakkeram, tashakkur, or sapas. They're all
I'm sorry, we had a disturbance on the connection.
Sapas? Is it Sapas to say
Sapas
goodbye?
is a very pure Persian one.
Sapas.
All right.
Well, Sapas, everybody. This was
Thank
fascinating.
you.
I hope